Chaos has erupted at Kalou Comprehensive School polling station during the ongoing Kalou parliamentary by-election after a group of armed hooded men reportedly confronted journalists covering the exercise and seized their cameras. The incident triggered confusion at the polling station, prompting security officers to deploy Teargas to disperse crowds as tension spread among voters, election observers, and members of the public monitoring the exercise. The disruption immediately heightened concerns over the security environment surrounding one of the Kenya's most closely watched by-election, with the political parties treating the contest as the important test ahead of the 2027 general election. Every development throughout the voting process has attracted intense national attention. According to reports from the polling station, the confrontation involving journalists unfolded while voting was underway, and armed individuals whose identities had not been publicly established reportedly approached members of the media before taking away their cameras. The incident created panic among people at the polling center, forcing security officers to intervene as confusion intensified. As crowds gathered and uncertainty grew, police officers responded by using tear gas in an effort to restore order. The deployment temporarily disrupted activities around the polling station as voters, observers, and journalists sought safety amid the unfolding events. The developments quickly became one of the defining moments of election day in Kalou constituency, shifting attention from the voting process itself to broader questions about security, media freedom, and the conduct of the electoral exercise. Against the backdrop, Democracy for Citizens Party or DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua announced that he would hold an urgent media briefing later in the day at his Olmunyoro residence in Nyeri County, which he did, and also warned the members of parliament from Mount Kenya who are partnering with the government to cause mayhem in Kalou. He said the briefing focused on what he described as police violence and also electoral fraud during the Kalou parliamentary by-election. In a Facebook post published on Thursday, July 16th, Gachagua announced that the press conference started at 3 p.m. at his residence and indicated that his address was a matter of fact, where he equally said that the 2027 general election is not going to be peaceful and now is certain. His announcement and the media press briefing came as a result from Kalou continue to dominate political discussions, with the party's observers and also residents closely monitoring events as voting progressed. Early in the day, Gachagua had already expressed the concern about the presence of police officers operating in plain clothes during the by-election. He argued that such deployments had the potential to interfere with the credibility and security of the electoral process. Addressing Inspector General Police Douglas Kanja, the former deputy president criticized the deployment strategy, saying plainclothes officers had become a source of insecurity during the election. He stated that he had previously urged the Inspector General to withdraw such officers from Kalou, but claimed that his concerns had not been acted upon. Gachagua further alleged that some politicians were working together with the police officers to interfere with the voting at the several key polling stations. However, those allegations had not been independently verified by the time the report was published, and no official evidence had been presented publicly to substantiate the claims. The allegations nevertheless added another layer of the political tension to an election that had already attracted significant public interest. And as events unfolded, attention increasingly focused not only on voter turnout and the candidates competing for the parliamentary seat, but also on the overall management of the electoral process. Amid the growing uncertainty, Gachagua appealed to election observers, journalists, and also members of the public to remain vigilant throughout the day. He encouraged them to document any incidents that they believed could undermine the credibility of the by-election. He specifically identified Huruma polling station, St. Joseph polling station, and AC primary school as locations requiring close public attention, urging residents and observers to closely monitor activities in those areas while voting continued. According to Gachagua, members of the public should remain alert and help safeguard the integrity of the polling stations that he believed could face attempts at a disruption. He also urged citizens to stay vigilant across the constituency in case similar incidents emerged elsewhere. Beyond those appeals, the DCP leader called upon security agencies to ensure that the election remained peaceful from the opening of polling stations through the completion of the voting and also the subsequent tallying process. He warned that the authorities would bear responsibility for any disruptions witnessed during the exercise. His remarks reflected the heightened political atmosphere surrounding the Kalou contest, where competing parties have attached considerable significance to the outcome. Although it is the parliamentary by-election, political observers have viewed the race as an important indicator of shifting political alliances. Throughout the election day, voters continue to cast their ballots across the country and across the constituency, despite the reported disruptions of Kalou Comprehensive School polling station. Polling stations opened at 6 a.m. as scheduled, allowing registered voters to participate in the by-election. Among those who voted early were the leading candidates contesting the parliamentary seat. DCP candidate Sammy Douglas Kamau Waweru cast his vote alongside United Democratic Alliance candidate Samuel Mushina Nyaga, with election officials overseeing the process as voting proceeded across the constituency. The participation of the leading candidates underscored the importance of the contest, which has drawn attention well beyond Nyandarua County. Political leaders from different parties have closely followed developments in Kalou, viewing the by-election as a significant political contest at a time when preparations for the 2027 general election are steadily gathering momentum. At the same time, the incident involving journalists has renewed attention to the role of the media during elections. Journalists covering polling stations play a critical role in documenting events as they unfold, providing the public with independent information about conduct of voting and reporting any incidents that arise throughout the electoral process. Any confrontation involving members of the media therefore attracts significant public interest because of the potential implications for transparency and public confidence during elections. In this case, reports that cameras were seized from journalists became one of the central issues emerging from polling day. As events continued to unfold, neither the police service nor the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission had issued an official statement specifically addressing the reported confrontation involving journalists and also the allegations raised by Gachagua by the time this report was published. The absence of immediate official response meant that several questions surrounding the reported incidents remained unanswered as voting continued across the constituency. Election observers, political leaders, and members of the public therefore continued monitoring developments while awaiting further communication from the relevant authorities. The Kalou parliamentary by-election has unfolded against a backdrop of heightened political competition, making every development closely watched both within the constituency and nationally. Incidents occurring on polling day have the potential to shape public discussion about election management, security and arrangements, and confidence in democratic process. As the voting exercise continued, attention remained focused on whether authorities could address the reported security concerns, respond to the allegations raised by political leaders, and provide further updates regarding the incident involving journalists. For now, the priority remained the orderly completion of voting, the protection of voters, election officials, observers, and journalists, and the transparent management of the electoral process until the final results are declared. The events witnessed on Kalou Comprehensive School polling station have ensured that this by-election will be remembered not only for the political contest itself, but also for the security concerns and competing claims that emerged during voting. How the relevant institutions respond to those concerns is likely to remain an important part of the conversation as Kenya continues preparing for the future electoral contests. What are your thoughts on this development? Share your views in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this report, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on the notification for more in-depth political news and also analysis.